former governor of Virginia from 1998 to 2002, UVA graduate, U.S. Army counterintelligence, and former Attorney General in Virginia as well. And he was a former presidential candidate in 2008, and he's back in New Hampshire. I guess I'll leave it at that. Ladies and gentlemen, Jim Gilmore.
Thank you. I guess, thank you. Thanks, I guess, yeah. Read nothing into that, ladies and gentlemen, okay? I am so glad to be here this morning with the leaders of the Republican Party in this state and across the Northeast. It's a pleasure to be here. It's been really cold this winter. And in Virginia, we've had snow, we've had high cold, and it's really, so the other day, we were talking, and I said, you know, we got to get out of this. You know, let's go give a speech somewhere. And they said, we got just the place for you. And I said, surprise me. So here I am in sunny New Hampshire, and I'm delighted to be here this morning to have a chance. I'm president of and CEO of the Free Congress Foundation, which is a conservative think tank in Alexandria, Virginia, near Washington. We really devote a lot of our time to thinking about, particularly about the economy, and the fact that just so many people are unemployed because we've never recovered from the Great Recession. Our signature issue is how you really do something to get the economy going again and to get people employed. Women are unemployed at a higher level than the national average. African Americans are unemployed at a higher level than the national average. It's a real concern. It's ruinous for young people, the millennial generation. It's a serious problem, but also it doesn't enable the country to have the sinews of power that are going to be so necessary in this challenging time. So I'm here this morning to talk to you about a little something different. There's going to be plenty of time to talk about the national economy and what we have to do to restore the economy of the United States. But I'm here this morning to talk to you about something, if not more important, at least it's more immediate. And it's the grave danger to the United States that we're facing right now, today, as a result of this extremely dangerous world and this extremely dangerous situation that we're in. This morning, I want to talk to you about the current events a little bit. I woke up this morning, I'm sure you did too, we turned on the television. The Russians are massing troops along the Ukrainian border right now. They've already pretty much announced they're going to try to annex the Crimea. The concern is always now going to be that they may very well move into the eastern Ukraine, and in fact, they may try to annex the entire Ukraine. Who would have thought just as long as 3 or 4 weeks ago that we would end up with a major European crisis? Never would have anticipated that. What are we going to do here? Does this mean that any enclave or group anywhere in Europe that is subject to Russian troops or control now can hold some kind of fake referendum and suddenly become a part of Russia again? Is that where we are this morning? Is that the situation that we're going to be in? Okay, what happens about after the Crimea? Eastern Ukraine? What happens after Eastern Ukraine? Western Ukraine? What happens after that? Romania, Bulgaria, Poland? I mean, you know, the president was very disparaging of Governor Romney in the last election and said, well, you know, we're not going back to the Cold War. Well, he should have talked to his pal, Putin, about that question, shouldn't he? And, you know, it's a very serious issue that we're facing right now. Meanwhile, in the United States, you know, we're uncertain. We have a policy today of weakness in a very dangerous world. We have a gridlock in Washington that's not helpful because we need some leadership in the Congress to be a counterpose to what's going on in the White House. And what do we got? This is the Hill newspaper from yesterday. Congress tells Ukraine the U.S. can't get it done, which means that the United States is signaling right now that we're not going to be in a position to offer any kind of decisive leadership. Now, I'm not talking about sending the 101st Airborne troops to Kiev, but what I am talking about is sending a strong leadership message to the Western world and to the Eastern world that we are going to be prepared to stand up when the chips are down. That's what America is, that's what it does, and that's where we shall return. I mean, so I'll ask you, ladies and gentlemen, you feel safer today in the world than we did before Barack Obama became president? Do you? No, I don't either. And I've been around. You know, everybody brings their past experiences to today's crisis. We all do in our everyday lives. We do in our public affairs as political and policy leaders. We bring our past experiences. My past experience is a lifelong love for national security and foreign policy issues. I've already told you that I believe that the principal concern and challenge facing the United States today is the lack of growth of our economy. But that has grave national security implications, and I feel it very, very strongly. I went to UVA and studied foreign policy. I was a Russian area studies specialist. I joined the United States Army and became an intelligence agent in West Germany of military intelligence. Now, if there are veterans out there, I don't want you guys making fun of the military intelligence, you know, the dichotomy, right? In fact, are there any veterans here? Are there? Why don't we have veterans stand up? Stand up and, if you would, please. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your service to our country. And you know, there's never been a greater time when we need people who have military experience and background to understand the challenges and the issues we're facing today. I've been on 18 countries on 3 continents when I was the governor of Virginia. I was asked to chair a National Commission on Homeland Security and Terrorism for the United States. When I was governor, I was recruited to that in 1999. It was called the Advisory Panel on Terrorism. They shortened it up to the Gilmore Commission, and I still think it's the best body of work on homeland security that exists today. Anywhere. You can find it on the RAND Corporation webpage. We did 3 reports. Our reports were that we thought the chances of a conventional attack inside the homeland was almost inevitable. And we issued that report, actually the first report, in 1999. We continued to repeat it over and over until the 9/11 attack. And I was governor during the 9/11 attack and had to face what was happening then. I will tell you that I was in New York on September the 10th campaigning for the Republican candidate for governor of Virginia that year, trying to raise some money in New York City for him. We rang the bell at the American Stock Exchange, which is right next to the former World Trade Center. To make a long story short, I got back to Virginia the next morning. I was in the governor's mansion, and as usual, I turned on the television to see what was going on. World Trade Center is in flames. I said, Roxanne, come around here. You got to see this. Somebody has lost control of an airplane and flown it into the World Trade Center. It's on fire. And we sat there and we watched the second plane go into the second tower. And at that point, I knew we were under an attack. I picked up the phone, called the Emergency Operations Center, got that going, notified the National Guard, warned the police to notify us of any kind of activity that might be going on in the state of Virginia at that time, did the job that you need to do as a chief executive of a major state. And walked across Capitol Square to my office in the Capitol just in time to find out that there was a second state that was attacked that day. And that state was Virginia. Because the Pentagon, you see, is in Virginia. And where were the responders? I assure you that it was not a federal response. What happens when there's a major catastrophe out there on the street, or there's a major fire, or there's a major explosion? The answer is the fire departments. And the Arlington County Fire Department responded, joined later by Alexandria, then Fairfax, then from across the river, Montgomery County, Maryland, and others came in to deal with this catastrophe that was going on as a plane was driven into the Pentagon, vaporized itself and people inside the Pentagon in order to make a dramatic policy statement about what kind of world we were getting ready to enter. And we are in that world today. We are in, I think, a more dangerous world today than we were at the time that I was engaged in intelligence work in Europe during the Cold War. Because now we have a dual problem. We have a dual challenge. We have something new today. We have potential people who understand how to use our technology, our cell phones, our airplanes, our modern technology against us. And more so than that, they can make a $10,000 attack turn into a $5 billion response out of the taxpayer of the United States' pocket because of the reaction that we feel forced to do. That's a dramatic return on investment, a dramatic force multiplier. And in addition to that, they can use modern technology of communication today to communicate their attack on CNN, on MSNBC, on Fox. Every day, and to create that uncertainty, which drives politicians in order to protect their own rear ends to do things to try to respond and spend more and more and more taxpayer money. That's the world that we're in today. And it's hard to track people down, to protect our borders. It doesn't just have to be Al-Qaeda. It can be the international drug cartels that come across our border with at least drugs and who knows what else. But the problem we face today is it isn't just that. Some people are saying that's the wave of the future, that's the new era that we are in. They ignore the fact that we are still dealing with nation-state potential conflicts. China, growing every day. Russia, the news as recently as this morning. Iran, someone we're trying to cope with right now. And if they get a bomb, it's going to destabilize the entire Middle East and indeed the world. So the challenges today are more complicated and more challenging than we've ever seen before, and not everybody's loyal. Just the other day, I was asked to give a talk at CPAC. I don't know, anybody familiar with CPAC? It's this conservative, it's pretty robust, I must say. The people that attend there are awfully conservative, which I guess is why I was invited to go and give a talk. But I was asked to show up that day because there seems to be a strain of thought today. Not everybody in the room is going to agree with this, but I'm going to tell you straight from the shoulder how I feel about this. People bring their experiences to the daily crisis, and I bring mine. And we've talked about what my background has been. I was asked to address the issue of Edward Snowden. A lot of people at CPAC say that Edward Snowden is a hero, that he is, you bet. And that day, I made it very clear by saying so in straight English, that in my view, Edward Snowden is a traitor. And a coward, because he says, well, I'm a martyr and I'm trying to, reveal the truth. Well, there's nothing wrong with us knowing that truth and engaging in that debate. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But he said, but I'm going to flee to Russia in order to get on my platform. Flee to Russia, this guy. Here's a little New York Post comrades with Edward Snowden and Vladimir Putin right at the same time is the reality that we're facing today. But the truth is that Edward Snowden betrayed his position. He was placed with a trust by employers and the people of the United States into a position where he could aid the national security of this country, and he worked diligently for years to gain access to information to give over to adversaries of the United States. He betrayed his security clearance. He had a special high security clearance over and above top secret to give him that trusted access to information. And he betrayed that security clearance. He betrayed his employer and people he was working with as well as his country, because when the time came for him to flee this country with his ill-gotten gains of information and knowledge and records and files, he told them he was going back from Hawaii to the United States to get some kind of medical treatment, and in truth, he got on a plane and flew to Hong Kong, where he gave the information to the Chinese, and then later to the Russians. This man is a traitor and a coward, and we do ourselves no justice or safety to our security of the United States by saying otherwise. And those people who say that there should be an amnesty, like the New York Times editorial page, and certain people within our own party, and some say he should receive a slap on the wrist. This is wrong. time has come to recognize the world we live in and to stand up for ourselves, and Edward Snowden is a traitor. But he has triggered a legitimate debate. When I was chairman of the National Commission on Homeland Security, the advisory panel, the Gilmore Commission, I was actually fairly alarmed at the high, hot, intense reaction to the 9/11 attack. Believe me, I was there. I saw the Pentagon myself. I have some stories I could tell you. I went into the smoking hole of the Pentagon. I was there with people, and I said, after the fire was out, I looked at all the debris and the rubble in that place, and I said, you know, what happened to the people? And they said, body parts are within 30 feet of you right now under this rubble. I went to the hospital, and I saw people who had been burned, and they told me their story. So I understand all this. But I was concerned at the white-hot reaction from the Patriot Act and the move to begin to clamp down on the civil freedoms of this country. And I'm on the record of giving speeches and reminding people what Benjamin Franklin said, that he who would trade a little temporary security in return for their liberties are entitled to neither security nor liberty. That's a paraphrase, but it's close enough. Ben had it right. The official report, the fourth report, if you'll get a chance to read that, I did an introductory letter every time, tried to set the tone for what was going on in Homeland Security at that time. And in that report, in the fourth report, I said, preserving the freedoms and civil freedoms of the American people is the entire game. If we throw that away in the name of security, the enemy will have changed us forever and caused us to lose and for them to win. Now today, I think that we see, some would say that we have to go lurch the other way. And Snowden, of course, has tried to gin up this idea that we have to give up our security and give up our professionals and our technological advantages in order to preserve our liberties. Folks, at some point, we have to behave here like grown-ups. The fact is that we cannot dismantle our safety and security in this country based upon some false choice. We constantly are being offered false choices. You either have to have liberty or you have to have security. I say to you, ladies and gentlemen, we have to have both. The national security of the United States depends on both. And that is our challenge. We don't dismantle our intelligence community. I was a part of that community. We don't dismantle and disable and disempower the people who are engaged with our great superiority of technology to try to defend us. Technology can be our savior as well as our challenge. But it's perfectly clear that we must have oversight, we must have accountability, and that has failed. And more of that must be done. And we should hold the Congress accountable if they're not looking into this and they're not holding our security agencies accountable for their conduct or misconduct. And the American people must go to bed at night knowing that they're not being watched, they're not being surveilled, unless they have some sort of direct contact with enemies of this country. This is sophisticated. This is the challenge that we face, and it is a not simple false choice. And you should not listen to any politician that tells you that it is, because that's our duty as leaders of our party and of the people of the United States because of the choices that we make to lead. Let me just talk for a moment about the next false choice, and that is Barack Obama and Secretary Hagel. See, I told you at the beginning of this talk that I was going away a little bit from this principal theme of economics in order to talk to you a little bit about what I see as a clear and present danger this morning. That's why I came to New Hampshire. The President today is offering a program to reduce our military. Historically, the policy of this country has always been to be in a position, if we have to deal with two major conflicts in two different parts of the world at the same time. They are now offering a proposal to reduce our military to one potential conflict. What happens if we have two? What happens if the enemies of this country around the world decide that perhaps we should have a conflict that we have to face in Europe, and then at the same time something in the Taiwan Straits, and this president has decided that we are not capable of spending the money that is going to be necessary because he says we're in a new era, I tell you, ladies and gentlemen, we are not in a new era. If we are in a new era, it is one of heightened danger, not reduced danger. The President is leading wrong on this. He is weakening our country, and ladies and gentlemen, it must be stopped and it must be reversed, and we in this room will do that. China is increasing their budget right now. It's important because it sends a message. The President is sending a message on behalf of you and me and the rest of our country around the world that we are in decline and we will not act. And when that happens, it encourages Stalinist thugs to go in and send troops into other countries. That's the challenge that we're facing today. The Chinese are sending an upward signal. We are sending a downward signal. The President says, well, it's because of the sequester. So what he's doing is he's offering you a false choice here, ladies and gentlemen. He's saying, well, you know, we have to reduce the military or you don't get your sequester and control your budget. That's really what he's doing. He's playing politics, ladies and gentlemen, with the defense of the United States. This is unacceptable conduct on behalf of a President of the United States, and it cannot stand. Think about this. He's saying right now we have to reduce because of financial considerations, because of your sequester, we have to reduce our defense. And I thought about it last night, and I read all the materials, and I thought, you know, I'm not going to talk about every aircraft carrying airplane and soldier. What I am going to do is remember President Ronald Reagan, who went out of his way to make sure that this country was well defended. You know, Ronald Reagan, just think about this, he would have fought for the defense of this country. He did fight for the defense of this country and for the capacity of this country, didn't he not? He did. He didn't say, tear down our army. He said, tear down this wall. What a message, and what a change in the world that message created, and he didn't accept the false choices at any time and protected our country. So I say to you folks, to my friends here in the Northeast, we are not obligated to accept false choices, not from the President and not from people within our own party that for their own selfish purposes demand that the United States make choices between liberty or security. Our duty as Americans is to carry out a policy that says that we can do both. Now, I close by saying this. You know, can we do this? Can we Americans actually meet the challenges of this new world that we're in? This new, much more complicated national security challenge that we have in a time of no economic growth, something that we could do something about if we simply had leadership at the national level. And I think that we can, because you bring the benefit of your experiences to the challenge of today. And the truth is that America is an exceptional nation. Now, I've been around. I've lived in Germany on behalf of this country. I've spoken their language. I've done the work over there. And I understand that every country brings something to the table within the global community. I understand that. But we Americans are exceptional because of the touchstones that we bring to the table ourselves. Our history, our attributes, the values that we have as Americans, uniquely Americans, not like even friends in other parts of the world. We have the experience of throwing a major power off of our shores to create independence. We have the experience of fighting our way through a civil war, which could have destroyed this nation and did destroy hundreds of thousands of young men. We have fought through an inherited civil rights challenge successfully and continue that battle to this day. We have won the Cold War and destroyed the Soviet Union without firing a shot. We are an exceptional people, and we are perhaps the indispensable nation in the 20th century, and we will be again in the 21st century. I promise you that we will do what we have to do. We will rebuild our economy. We will restore our armed forces. We will continue to express our values. And in this century, the 21st century, once again, we will be the beacon of hope in this troubled world. Thank you very much. Thank you.